There's a lot of senses. That's the thing. We're only used to dealing with 5, and well, it was thrilling for me to realize that, you know, there's a lot more than I learned about in graduate school about how we work. And I realized this is a pretty important topic, because if this is true, how much else is true about ourselves that we don't even know? That we have these abilities and capacities that we're not using every day that could make life more, you know, more fun and enriching.
But, I mean, but isn't that part of, I mean, even our whole growth process? I mean, there's so much that we don't know.
There's so much
initially when we introduced to the world, I mean, there's so much that we don't know. But it's how we're taught. I think that we begin to grasp and understand who we are. And then, as you're pointing out, I would believe that there's so much that we aren't taught, that we don't even begin to grasp.
You know, it's good to be skeptical, because a lot of the ideas we come across, we should be skeptical of them, especially when they come from institutions or governments. We want to say, are these people really telling us the truth? So being skeptical is a healthy thing. But we can be too skeptical sometimes, and there's new things that we should be opening our minds to that we just are closed to, because we've been taught by our teachers or our parents in the past. So that's just silly stuff. That's just kooky, weird stuff. We don't have to pay attention to it. But I'll tell you know, what's kooky and weird yesterday could be the advanced science of tomorrow. Every scientific discovery that's ever been made, people have ridiculed at the time it happened.
Sure.
I mean, no one even accepted the Wright brothers for 2 years after they flew.
Now, that's interesting, because I was thinking of the Wright brothers, too.
Well, there you go. We had a little resonance going on here.
Did you project that over here?
Maybe it's simultaneous, but that's the idea, is that all of these important discoveries that really shape how we live nowadays were all ridiculed. Light bulbs and anything that we use, electricity, was all, people would say, what do we need it for? Even when someone invented the telephone, people said, what do we need that for? We have the telegraph, you know. We have errand people, messengers.
But aren't we doing it even faster today? I mean, you look at how long an invention today is relevant as opposed to what it was years ago.
Yeah.
Or how inventions have evolved.
It's so accelerated now. We have so many more inventions coming so much more quickly, and that's why people feel kind of alienated sometimes from societies, because things change so quickly it's hard to keep up with what we need to know, the skills we need to have to, you know, to participate.
Okay, when we come back, I want to talk some more about residents and how we do this projection. Stay with us, okay? Stay with us. You're watching TV 48 Update. I'm your host, Catherine Pugh. We're talking about opening minds. We'll be back.
Stay tuned. 48 Update will return.
Welcome back to TV 48 Update. I'm your host, Catherine Pugh. I'm talking with Dr. Simeon Hein, and we're talking about Opening Minds, a book that he's written. And it talks about all kinds of experiences that we can have, or are probably having, and don't even realize that we're having, or things that are happening all around us. In here, you talk about the alien, discovering the alien within. Talk to me about that.
Well, I'll tell you something about remote viewing. I'll just tell you, I like to call it resonant viewing, because I think it really more has to do with resonance than with remoteness. So I call it resonant viewing. But the truth about it is, anyone who goes into this area eventually ends up studying kind of strange topics. Because if you can put your perception on something that's on the other side of the world, why not go to another planet? It's not affected by distance. It's not like a radio wave.
So you can actually put what you're thinking on somebody else.
Yeah, and you could get information from them right here. So people are curious from time to time. They want to know about extraterrestrials, and occasionally what people do when they're trained and get better at this is they start viewing Mars, or Mars in the past. You know, people speculate there was a face on Mars, maybe there was a civilization there. You end up viewing extraterrestrials at one point or another. Even the military viewers did this. They've told me about this. And they've talked about it publicly. So we know that a lot of people get extraterrestrials when they're doing their viewing sessions, and we know they're good, accurate viewers. I mean, they can view flower vases and mountains and cities and get accurate information. So what does it mean when they're viewing extraterrestrials or spaceships and things around the planet? It really suggests that there's a lot more we don't know about the universe. And the reason I call it discovering the alien within is I think that there's a portion of ourselves that we don't even understand very well inside each of us, having to do with our subconscious and certain types of awareness that we're not normally familiar with, because we're so used to dealing with our 5 physical senses.
Absolutely.
And I think part of what we need to do is, as people, to kind of grow, is to discover those parts of ourselves we're not so familiar with.
So what do we do?
Well, I like doing it through resonant viewing. But anything that takes you into something that's kind of new and potentially a little scary but a little exciting at the same time is probably good to do. Because...
Such as?
Well, you know, some people do it through meditation, and some people do it through athletics, or some people just go to hear a talk about channeling or some sort of esoteric topic. You know, it's worth going to one of those lectures once in a while, even though they seem a little weird, because you might learn something new. Really what it has to do with is energy and aspects of ourselves that we're not familiar with. And by exploring those, whatever way works for you, you actually get to know yourself a little better. And I think before we meet, extraterrestrial visitors, which I think is probably going to happen in the near future. We need to understand ourselves a little better. Otherwise, what happens is we have fear.
So there's life on other planets?
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt in my mind now. This is something I didn't know about as much as I do now. There's no doubt in my mind that there is life on other planets and that they are visiting the Earth too.
They're already here.
Lots of hundreds of species visiting this planet. And they're all different types of people, different shapes, sizes, and colors from other places visiting here. And people encounter these from time to time with UFOs. You've heard people have had abduction experiences. And the media normally kind of portrays that in a kind of a comical light. They kind of make fun of it. But my point of view on it now, having done the research, is this is all quite real. And part of it is our government is not comfortable with the topic because it's a control issue. And some people are not comfortable with it, though I think most people actually are. We've seen a lot of E.T. movies and had Star Trek around things for a long time. This is not a new idea.
So are they weird-looking beings? Or
Yeah.
Are they human-looking?
No, some of them are weird and some of them are human-looking. There's all types, shapes, and
Have
sizes.
you seen them?
I've only encountered them twice in a dreamlike state early in the morning. I've written about that in Opening Minds. And there were encounters where I had very clear communications with another type of intelligence. It didn't seem human because of the way the voices sounded. It sounded more humanoid. I just have to assume it's extraterrestrial, or it could be something from here that I don't know about. But it felt extraterrestrial, let me put it that way. And it was instructions and communication about some of the things that I read about in the book. And it was very clear communications. It wasn't something very vague. I mean, in one case, the voices were speaking right in my ear very clearly about remote viewing, setting up an institute in Boulder. It wasn't very esoteric stuff. It was very practical about how to set up an institute and how to do this and how to do that. And it seemed like a good idea at the time, so I actually followed those instructions, and that's why we have this institute that's been running for 7 years in Boulder, now the Institute for Resonance. It came out of some of those contacts. So my feeling about the whole thing is that we're part of a galactic project where we're being encouraged to integrate into a larger kind of social and political arrangement of other planets and other species. And that we're not really aware that we're part of this kind of federation yet. But I think it's going to happen. I'm quite serious about this. The best evidence comes from the Disclosure Project. It's run by Dr. Stephen Greer, who lives in Virginia.
Okay, when we come back, we're
We'll
going to
talk
talk
about
about that
this, yeah.
project, okay?
Yeah.
Stay with us. You're watching TV 48 Update. I'm your host, Catherine Pugh. We're talking about opening your minds, and you have to open them to understand what's going on here. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to TV 48 Update. I'm your host, Catherine Pugh. I'm talking with Dr. Simeon Hein, who's written a book called Opening Minds, and you run a center in
Boulder, Colorado, the Institute for Resonance.
Okay.
Sure.
And you were talking about
The Disclosure Project.
Disclosure Project, which is out of Virginia.
This is the best evidence that I think is available about the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrials. The Disclosure Project is an operation by medical doctor, Dr. Stephen Greer, to get government and corporate witnesses who've had contact with extraterrestrials or UFOs to be able to testify in front of Congress in an orderly fashion with congressional hearings to say what they know. There's about 400 or 500 of these witnesses. These are top-notch, credentialed people from military, intelligence agencies, aerospace, NASA, FAA, who have seen, irrefutable evidence of the existence of these craft and these beings, and have also been told later on not to talk about it. And this
Have
is
they
why,
been told not to talk about it by the government?
yeah,
Or
by
whom?
the government.
And
when
if they talk
ha-
about it, then what would happen?
The government, some aspects of the government doesn't want people to know about this, doesn't want our society to know about this. It just has to do with oil and power and control. And really what it has to do with this technology, these extraterrestrial craft.
Sounds like our war, but go ahead.
Well, it would have a lot of implications if we had disclosure, but I think we need it. Our planet is facing a lot of challenges right now, and the technology that has been suppressed for the last 50 years is free, so-called free energy technology. And these UFOs do not use diesel engines to get from here to wherever they're going. They use engines that take the energy right from the vacuum of space all around us. And this is called free energy technology. And it really seems...
So maybe if we could master that, we could use that instead of oil?
We wouldn't need the oil from Iraq or anywhere else anymore. It would be the end of the combustion engine. And this technology has existed for over 50 years, I should add.
So why haven't we been able to master it?
It's been hidden away in the basements of some of these corporations that have the patents for these things because it would basically reduce our dependence on oil. And it would end basically a huge area of our economy. And that has big consequences.